Okay, everyone. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about gridding up your line drawing. So this next week, your line drawing is going to be due. So you should have already added the grid to your image, whether it's digital or on an actual printout. I think the printout, well, yeah, I think either way would work really well. So once you've done that, depending on how many letters and how many numbers you have, once you add your 1-inch grid here, you're going to enlarge it with the same amount of letters, same amount of numbers. So I have 9 down, A through H across, so that's what you're going to see in my enlarged version of 1 inch to 2 inches. Okay, so I've already done some of my line drawings. You can see all the detail I'm getting in there. So the idea is once your line drawing is complete, all you're going to do is start shading, which is kind of like coloring book at that point. This line drawing is the most important part of this final assignment. It's really important that you just go square by square. So if you analyze any of these squares, I'm going to go, now I've already erased a lot of the squares as I've been drawing. So you want to consider that too, because you don't want to see that grid in the drawing when you're done. So even in drapery, you want to indicate just these lines to sort of give you an idea of where your shading is going to be. Very light lines. I don't even know if you can see them. But I'm putting in very light lines to give me an idea of where my shading is going to happen. But let's say we go to this square right here, for instance, this little deer head. Now I put a little piece of tape on there because it helps secure it in place. So this square is 5G. So I'm going to 5G with my little deer face, right? And if I go over here to 5G, I'll see the same little deer face in that same square, right? So I took the time to really analyze this in linear form because you're going to be pulling all these lines into your value structure later, which we'll talk about when we get there. If I were to take another, let's go to the little lizard face, right? I'm going to isolate that with my little isolator here. It's a 1-inch cutout. And so this is, let's see, this is 8E. So over here, I'm going to go to 8E, isolate his little face. Oops. I think I'm not quite in the right place. So let's take a look what's going on there. So I have that there. Oh yeah. So what I've done here, I'm not quite in the right place. This is actually the square right here. Phew. So you can see what you see here in this one is what you see here. But what I do on these, which confused me for a minute, is I actually put an X right through the middle of my printout. Because that way I can see where the halfway points are. I can see where the center point is. And if I were to find the center here, it would be about here. So that way I can tell this was a little bit lower here. I went a little bit high there. Sometimes when you pull this off, you have to make adjustments to make the drawing work. So as close as you get to this and that square, it might be a little different when you get to the drawing. Let's go to the next square over. So this is 8F. So I'm going to go to the next square over. Let's make sure I'm on my squares. Yeah, 8F is right here. So you can see the isolated little foot in that square, right? So you're going to slowly delineate. Now, this graphic up here, I don't know if you can see it. Whoops. Hold on a minute. My contraption is, my camera's falling down. Let me see if I can focus on that graphic a little bit better. Anyway, this graphic took me a really long time. It's very symmetrical. This little ribbon is kind of crazy. I'm going to put a printed version, or sorry, a still version of this in Brightspace so you can look at it. But so far, I mean, I still have not completed my little cup. So I still have this little face to do down here. I haven't finished him yet, and it's taken me 5 hours. So be aware that this portion of it can take a really long time. Now I kind of guesstimated 4 hours for line drawing, 4 hours for back drapery, 4 hours for middle ground, 4 hours for foreground. Well, it's give and take an hour here and there. So I would say this is probably going to take me 6 hours drapery might take me 2 to 3 hours back there. So, because it's pretty simple, my drapery is not too complex, but I do have some cast shadows here that are really important to put in before you do any of these elements here. So you always want to work back to front. That way your line work will be overlapping whatever's in the back. So you don't want the back to overlap the front. Even your lines, your indication of line or shading shows a layered effect and creates a sense of depth. So I still have to do this little cup. I'm going to put him in there. Again, erase your lines as you go, especially on that drapery. You don't want to see your grid back there once you start getting that shading in. But I'll be doing a demo on the shading in the back drapery for next week. Right this week now, hopefully you've had your still life approved. You're pretty close to approval if you haven't yet. If I made another Photoshop correction, just quickly rephotograph it and get your grid going. Once I approve the grid, remember, try to do 2 squares. I've already, make sure you're on the right square. So really when you start isolating, really pay attention. Like right just before, I accidentally was on the wrong area on here because I put this X through here, so it kind of confused me for a minute. So make sure that you are on the right square. But you'll notice on many of these I've put a cross through them to divide the 1 inch into 4 smaller sections. So you'll be amazed at when you isolate a section how much it helps you to understand the placement of the form as an entire composition. Do not draw these in their entirety without isolating them. That defeats the purpose, and I guarantee you the accuracy will not be nearly what you can get by isolating your sections and only drawing within that one box, one at a time. Okay, so that's about it. There's a discussion thread on this if you have any questions. And I will post this when I complete my little cup. So we'll do this all together. That's about it for that.